Let's first deal with what I call subject mind map. Linear programming is the first example of the subject mind map I would like to present to you. It is part of F5 performance management and it's a very technical topic. I will show you how to deal with this kind of study material. Let's start. As always, you can start with a central image. I chose something that looks like linear programming. I have actually used the words linear programming as part of this image. You don't need to box your central image. The idea is not to restrict the image and to let the words form their own shape. Then you can move on to various parts of linear programming. You can use different shapes for the branches. It's up to you. Only try to make it as visual as possible and to bring as many associations as you can possibly bring. Use different color for every branch. As you can see, you do not need to be an artist to create your mind map. It doesn't need to be perfectly drawn. It is more important that you make sure to include your own associations and make them very vivid so that your brain can easily retrieve what it has photographed in the process of constructing a mind map. It will definitely save you time and effort in trying to memorize the material and will make studying a lot more effective. So here are the steps. There are 6 steps involved in constructing a linear programming. And I don't go into too much detail. I briefly name them and try to give myself some hints or triggers for my memory to retrieve it at a later stage. Once you are done with the main branches, you can include few points relating to the actual exam. Here I've included an exam tip to make sure that I deal with the first 5 steps of linear programming in order to earn a passing mark. Remembering this will help a great deal during the actual exam. You can also include references to the past exam questions, as well as the articles you plan to read. In other words, you can include parts of your study plan into your subject mind map. The subject of my next mind map is ethics principles. It is part of a F8 audit and assurance paper, and it is a mind map that is based on extremely theoretical type of knowledge, as opposed to the previous one I've shown you. I have chosen it in order to illustrate to you how you can deal with this type of learning material. First of all, central image, and in this case I have chosen to draw arrows representing different directions of your ethics decisions. You can include the main parts of the syllabus areas as the first level branches, such as ACCAs and the qualities they should display. Then you could move on to the actual principles. Once I'm done with the sub-branches, I add a few images. And as I said, move on to the few principles included in there, such as integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and so on and so forth. You can use different colors for every principle, every branch principle. For some of you, the names of the principles may not be so easy to understand and remember. In order to add vividness to the concepts you are trying to learn, you could use images that bring you very strong and very personal associations. And as I mentioned before, try to make them stand out as much as possible. This will make sure the images you choose will come up when you are trying to recall them on the actual exam while being under a certain level of stress. Okay, I move on to competence here. And I'm almost done with my principles. Once you are finished with the main branches, you can work a little on annotations, making sure they are readable and stand out even more. You should try and include most important parts and generalize as much as possible when you're dealing with a rather theoretical syllabus area. Don't try to add every tiny detail or write definitions. Surely it won't be possible to write full definitions on your mind map, but really that's not the purpose. Mind map is aiming to give you a chance to recall. You can use acronyms, you can highlight certain areas, you can add floating notes. All these are the possible tools that should help you to retrieve the studied material. Here is another example of how you can use mind mapping in order to get an overview of the exam syllabus and plan and or understand where you should focus your studies. In this case, I have chosen P3 Business Analysis paper. So let's begin. As always, the center is the main theme of the mind map. And the branches, in this case, will represent all of the syllabus topics and subtopics. So in this case, you should try to include some personal images and use different colors for different topics. You can be more relaxed when it comes to annotating the branches and use different colors which will complement the branches and make them more distinctive. You can make your mind map more or less detailed. It is all up to you. If you choose to make it really detailed and to include few levels of sub-branches, I would suggest that you try to stick to one color only for every branch, for both words and illustrations. Why? Because this would help to make sure your mind map doesn't become too messy or confusing to you. Another option is to create a child mind map for a particular area. For instance, you find that you want to dig more into the position and to make this branch a lot more detailed than the others. You can create another mind map on a separate page, which will essentially be an extension of your main mind map. Once you are done, I'm almost done here with my main branches. You can include some more accents and illustrations to complete your mind map. Since it is a syllabus mind map and you aim to use it for planning, if you aim to use it for planning, you can allocate dates representing deadlines, chapter references, or number of hours you plan to dedicate to each part of the syllabus. You can use it throughout your studying for assessing your progress as you move on through the syllabus, as well as you can use it for revision purposes by putting more stress to the areas that are more critical for the exam. I will repeat myself, do not get obsessed with details. Don't try to add all possible formulas or capture all the definitions. Mind map should help you generalize and not get lost in the details. You should rather try and use strong hints, preferably images, which will direct your thoughts to recalling particular formulas or areas of the syllabus. As a final part of my presentation, I would like to show you how you can use mind maps on the actual exam. I'm going to use September-December 2016, paper 7, sample exam question 1. It is quite a monster scenario question worth 35 marks. I'm going to show you the scenario in a moment, but before we start, let me suggest that once you are dealing with a scenario of such length and complexity, while you are reading it and underlying the keywords, you should already be constructing your mind map, all at the same time. Let me show you the question first. So we're dealing with Z Communications Group. As you can see, there is an auditor's letter built in the scenario. As always, you should try to read the requirement first. Let me move on to the requirement. In this case, the detailed requirement is built into the scenario. And it consists of 3 parts, A, B, and C. As I mentioned before, since you will be quite short of time, you should try and work out your mind map while you are reading the question. Let me illustrate. You can put the company name in the center and then try to grasp all the important details and reflect them on your mind map. I won't be reading you the question, but I'll explain how I go about constructing this mind map. I have included quite a few details about the company, the fact that it is listed, the industry, the year end. While it is important, you should not try to include all the details. Rather find the most critical ones, those that play a key role in your answer. Once I'm finished with the company, I move on to some of the important details mentioned in the company about the 2 acquisitions, the acquisition of 50% of another company and the acquisition of the license. Since there was a lot mentioned in regards to those 2 events, I'm pretty sure that I would need all the details in order to come up with the answer. Another important matter is to try and focus on what has been asked. Since we were asked about the audit risks, and audit risks normally relate to incorrect accounting treatment, you should make it clear what the accounting treatment was in relation to each part of the scenario. You can do it with different color to make it easier to distinguish them later. As you can see, I have included some of the numbers and percentages and the years, which will probably play a role in my answer too. As I continued reading the scenario, I came across the paragraph in regards to the sales and the accounting treatment of the sales. And later on, I have also read about the purchases of the company. So I tried to reflect the most critical parts of the scenario and to break it down into relevant parts. As you can see, this mind map looks quite different from the ones you've seen earlier. It is not as colorful and it doesn't have any images. There are two reasons to that. First of all, this mind map serves a different purpose. It is helping you to structure your answer and not to remember it. Secondly, you simply won't have time for any coloring or drawing on the exam. Nevertheless, this mind map will help you enormously to see the full picture of the scenario and to dig out some important information out of this lengthy text. And another important factor is that while you are creating the mind map, your brain will already start digesting the information and coming up with ideas for the answer. Okay, I'm almost done with the mind map. As a final touch, you can highlight all the numbers with yellow or any other color, just to make sure that they don't get lost in all the other pieces of information. And your mind map is ready. It has all the important details and we reflected all the important parts of the scenario. Now it's time for the second stage, making your answer plan. The best way to deal with the answer is to focus on what is being asked. Here we're dealing with three parts, A, B, and C, which will all form the answer. Another extremely important thing is to design your answer according to the number of marks allocated to each part of the requirement. Let me illustrate it. You can use the name of the company once again as a central image and then jump right into the first part. Part A is asking to evaluate the audit risks and gains 14 marks. That means you should come up with 14 sentences of 10-15 words each. With such large volume questions, the best thing is to simplify them. We can do it here by splitting the answer into 7 parts, each worth 2 marks. So I try to come up with a good risk and approximately 2 points for discussion in relation to each risk. For example, I'm talking about the acquisition of 50% of WTC company, and I'm talking about control and accounting in this case. I will not forget to talk about the actual risk in each part of my answer, as this is what the question has been asking, and this is the reason why I have called the main branch risks. As I mentioned earlier, you don't really need to make your mind map beautiful. All you need is to make it concise and easy to follow. So once we are finished with part A, I'm going to insert another branch here in a moment. To make sure that I have 7 risks. As I said, it doesn't matter how beautiful is your mind map. You may not follow the particular sequence while constructing your branches. If you wish, you can always assign numbers to the sub-branches. So now we move on to part B, which is 7 marks and is talking about internal audit department. So I called it internal audit and the assistance it can provide. Since we have an even number of marks here, we can split the answer into 4 parts, with one part earning only 1 mark. Now, part C has already been divided into 2 distinctive parts, each dealing with the 2 acquisitions, each one dealing with an acquisition made by the company. And we've been asked here to list the audit procedures. Part 1 is worth 4 marks, which means you should come up with 4 audit procedures. And part 2 is worth 6 marks. Hence, I'm going to identify 6 audit procedures. Okay, and as a final step, you can make sure that you have included enough points to earn full marks. I do it by simply calculating the points earned. The mind map is almost ready. This kind of mind map not only provides you with a structure of the answer, it also helps you to brainstorm the ideas. Another useful thing is if while you are writing down your answer, you suddenly find yourself lost or not knowing what to write, your mind map will help you quickly understand where you are in terms of gaining pass mark and move on to the next part. It will also be easier to come back to unanswered part if you wish. So, as I mentioned before, planning is extremely important, but planning with the help of a mind map will help you achieve best marks, will help you stick to the timing and to use it in the most efficient way.